Welcome back to Decouple. Today I'm joined by His Excellency Mohammed Al Hammadi. His Excellency is the Managing Director and CEO of the Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation, which he has led successfully in delivering the UAE's peaceful nuclear energy program. Mohammed is also the president of the World Association of Nuclear Operators, which is, I think, a huge honor, particularly for a nation which is so brand new into the nuclear scene. Very, very excited to have you on. Mohammed, it's a real honor. You have just broken your fast. It's the holy month of Ramadan. So thank you so much for making time for us during this special time of the year.
Thank you, Chris. A pleasure and honor to be with you in this podcast. And would like also to congratulate you on your program, The Decouple, that you've done a great success by bringing like-minded people and getting people excited about the nuclear industry.
Yeah, the seeds of this conversation, I think, were actually the IEA ministerial event, which you attended. I think you met a frequent guest of the podcast, Mark Nelson, there. And you mentioned that you'd heard him speaking on the podcast. So it's wonderful to hear all the places that we're listened to. Sometimes I check, we're downloaded in more than 100 countries around the world, but the UAE does pop up in that list. So it's wonderful tying this whole nuclear community together around the world. And a lot of eyes are on the United Arab Emirates. What is being accomplished and has been accomplished with the build at the Barakah site is truly remarkable and inspiring, particularly as we're really sensing a shift in, let's say, the trade winds blowing in the sales of nuclear energy around the world. In my own country, big developments happening. And I think just globally, as we're weathering this energy crisis, nuclear is very much back on the table. So a lot of interest. My listeners have been clamoring for some discussion of what has exactly occurred in the UAE. So, Mohammed, maybe you could take us back to the early days. This project, like any well-executed project, had many, many years of planning in it before even the first shovels were breaking soil. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the UAE in terms of its energy needs, and what was the planning that went into looking at what some of the options might be for meeting some of the energy needs of your growing country and economy?
Thank you, Chris, for the introduction, and I'm very again honored here to be speaking to you about our program here in the UAE and also about the UAE as a nation. The planning was kicked off and initiated in 2006. There was a lot of energy studies were done to find what are the best energy sources for the nation to enable security of supply and at the same time do it in a sustainable manner. And that's where the multi-projects were kicked off. There was the renewable project were kicked off. The nuclear project was also kicked off. And fast forward to today, we managed to kind of become a leader in the nuclear industry, I would say. And we managed to have 4 units under construction, and 3 units are operational as we speak. And that is a transformational change for the energy mix in the UAE. So we have renewable energy, we have nuclear energy today, and that was done through a very deliberate, detailed planning from the early days of those projects.
And so, I mean, this was a major commitment. I've heard, the Emirates are known as well for your wonderful airline industry as well. But in terms of a capital expenditure, this is quite large, perhaps the largest really in the history of the Emirates. What drove that enthusiasm for nuclear energy after doing this, I guess, technologically agnostic assessment of how to meet the country's needs? Why did you end up deciding on nuclear?
I think it's simple economics and simple math. When you look at the energy density of nuclear power plants, it's a very dense in energy. Another key aspects of nuclear, better than being also clean source of energy, it is safe, reliable, and produces abundance of energy, and runs 24/7. And that's a very key when it comes to energy security, when it comes to energy planners. Myself, as electrical engineer, I early in my career, I did network evaluation, network studies, and did not lead the team. I was working as a team member at that time. I was a young engineer, and I always wanted a base load of electricity. I always wanted something that will keep the grid stable and secure. And nuclear energy, nuclear power plants meet all of the above. It's clean, it is safe, it is reliable, and runs 24/7. And the economics of it also is very good. And looking as today, we are enjoying a base load of 3 units, roughly around 30 terawatts of hour a year, by the way, of those 3 units. We look for the fourth unit, we will have 40 terawatts of our electricity in a sustainable, clean manner. And that enables also to be able to put more other sources of energy, like renewable and others, on the grid. So nuclear energy meets many parameters that for any technical person or even a commercial person makes a lot of sense.
Can you tell me a little bit about the choices that were made? There were obviously a number of vendors that you looked at. I mean, a number of countries now, like Poland, for instance, are looking into becoming nuclear nations. And I'm sure your country as well, in this early process, was investigating, okay, now we've decided on nuclear, which vendor are we going to go with? What were some of the factors that guided the choices that were ultimately made in terms of who you chose to go with?
Chris, that's a great question, actually. Looking back on our history of our project, and even today, when I look at and engage with my colleagues in Romania and also in other like Poland and Hungary and Czech, for me, it's like a deja vu. Like looking at 2008 and 9, and kind of reliving those moments of who will be the best vendor as of today, who will be the best supplier, who will be the best partner to be able to replicate and do this all over again. And I think there's a good potential of success stories. Today you have the AP 1400, you have also the AP 1000, you have the different technologies, which were commissioned and operational. So if I advise somebody what will be the best vendor to pick, you need a vendor who did deliver in the last at least 5 to 10 years. And you need a partner that could make those deals bankable deals, so they could be financed by banks and than just by the government. And we've done that here in the UAE. We managed to structure a deal that is legally and commercially bankable. We managed to do it in a very good terms for the purchaser of electricity, at the same time also for the vendors and the partners. And if you look at the UAE today, we have the Koreans are partners in Barakah. They own around 18% of those power plants in Barakah. So that gives them also skin in the game of a win-win, and that's something also we are very happy to have. And today, I'd say the world in a better position to build nuclear power plants. That 2009 and 8, there was a lot of people who were competing to build nuclear power plants. If I can give you my personal struggle at that time, we were ranked like number 40 in a pecking order of priority projects. Then we were climbing up the ladder to become in the top 5 projects for those vendors. I remember we used to talk to companies, and where they will tell us, we are not interested. We have other countries who want to build this, and we are committed. And when the financial crisis happened, some of the projects were canceled. So we were kind of up the ladder. Then when we run our competition globally in a very, you would use the word military style of commitment, of meeting the milestones, and very rigorous, great project management capabilities in our team. And I'm very proud of our team's success at that in that endeavor. We managed to quickly climb the ladder, and we become the top 2, or even we became the top project in the world that companies were competing for. You mentioned countries. Everybody was competing for our projects. There was a lot of interest and appetite. And I remember around closing of the selection of the successful bidder, everybody wanted to be our partner. And initially also when we selected our partner, which is the Koreans, we've also kept everybody in a good par, because nuclear industry is small and you need everybody to help. So everybody is now still helping us in our success journey of the 4 units.
You mentioned this sense of deja vu that you have looking at the world right now. You're reminded, I think, of the position that you were in. There's been many challenges that have come up over the course of your project, and completing it as you are, essentially on schedule and on budget, is all the more remarkable given that, as you mentioned, the global financial crisis struck, the Fukushima accident occurred, and most recently, the COVID pandemic. Maybe tell us a little bit about how each of those crises affected the project, and how you managed to sail through those stormy waters.
Oh, okay. That's that would take a lot of
Big
time,
question.
Chris, to cover. So I will summarize it. Actually, I was reading a book on how to get big things done, and it did
Yes.
strike me a very interesting book, and goes back to the Nobel Prize winner in psychology of thinking fast and slow. And that individual brings the analogy of you have to plan slowly and execute fast. I would tell you, in going back to 2008, we did a lot of planning. I used to spend with the team hours and hours. We'll come in the office early in the morning, we leave around 9 to 10 p.m. every night, including weekends, just to plan this thoroughly. And my one of my fortes is project management. My master degree actually engineering management. So I enjoy doing work breakdown structures and doing detailed WS, where the team kind of get worn out until they get to the bottom of those work breakdown structures. I enjoy that. So that deliberate, detailed planning we did really pay dividends, and we've done it in a very thorough manner. In UAE, we do mega projects, by the way, oil and gas and other industries. We do gigantic projects here in the UAE. And as you rightly said, the nuclear project was the biggest commercial project or industrial project in the UAE history, but we are used to big projects. So that deliberate planning helped us a lot to mitigate a lot of risks. So we always kind of planned in details for, I won't say black swans, but like COVID, but we always planned for what could be the worst scenarios and what our mitigants. So everything we did, we had 3 to 4 scenarios as backup plans. And always plan B guaranteed fails. So we had always plan A fails and plan B is always there. So you have always a mixture between the plans that we've put together, we've succeeded on. So I contribute deliberate planning. And what we did also, Chris, a very thorough selection and bringing people from all over the world to come and help us in the project. So any niche area of expertise we needed, we tapped into the expertise globally. Even in project management, we went to the best project managers in the world. I'm a member of PMI, which is the Project Management Institute, for the last, I'd say 20 years now. And I've engaged with all my colleagues there to help us in the project planning phase. In the nuclear industry, I remember in the early days, we just signed a contract to do the construction. And by that time, I've already hired the CNO in that project. And I've hired the CNO, told him, your job is not to operate the power plant. The power plant will be ready in 12 years from today. Your job is to plan the manpower, what kind of a plant manager we will need, what kind of a QS program and a QA program we need to establish, what kind of management system we need to have. So I was asking him, look at 10 years, this is the end state how things look like. Now draw me a line how we will get there from today. I remember the guy was frustrated with me, but and we had a couple of CNOs in that last 10 years, but each one of them did a fantastic job in helping us in the thorough planning and imagining the next phases. And what I'm really proud of is the human capital that we managed to develop and develop over the years. We managed to bring the best talent from all over the world. We had also the very young and very talented people from the UAE and also from all over the world who did get groomed and developed. And looking at the UAE in 2009, we had almost no nuclear engineers in the country. We didn't have much of expertise in this field. So for the young people, we send them for scholarships. They went to US, in Georgia Tech, Penn State, other schools to learn the bachelor degree, and some of them did master degrees and also PhDs in the nuclear science. And then now when they come back, they easily kind of plug in and they are easy to work, it's easy to fit in the environment of the nuclear industry in the UAE because they got already the basic training. They land in an environment where they can rub shoulders with experts and grow very fast and become qualified. I can share a story with you, Chris. On Unit 2, by the way, it went critical by one of the young Emirati engineers who was she was trained in Westinghouse in the US. She was trained also in Korea. She did also live plant kind of a training. She did the 12 hours in the middle of the night, 12 hours of the day. She got groomed and qualified to become a senior reactor operator, and she did a fantastic job taking Unit 2 critical. And that's something which is also makes me very proud.
So, would you agree then that human factors? I mean, there's so many challenges to pulling off a project like this, and going from a nation without a nuclear program to a nation operating four of some of the largest reactors in the world. Um, it sounds like human factors are such a huge part of that, and it'd be interesting to hear. You've given us the example of the woman that brought the Unit 2 to criticality. What's been the impact throughout Emirati society? People talk a lot about nuclear in the way that it elevates people in terms of human capacity, in terms of their level of education, be that within nuclear engineering or within the skilled trades. What sort of opportunities has the Barakah complex opened up for within Emirati society?
Yeah. So if I can just give you a bit of background about the UAE before I talk about the talent. So UAE has around 200 nationalities, by the way, people living here in the UAE in a very successful environment. We encourage talent to come to the UAE. We actually reward talent to come and join the workforce here in the UAE. And nuclear is not as special. It's also it's very welcoming to bring talent to the UAE. So we've managed to bring the best talent in the world to the UAE, and we continue to bring high talent, top talent to the UAE in the nuclear industry. What it opened for, specifically for the young people here in the UAE, is the industry where you can add real value. You can, nuclear power plants, as you know, is a very low dense in energy. So each individual can bring megawatts of electricity, contribute to the clean electricity to their nation. So that pride factor on those people, that I'm very proud to work with them as a colleague. Very, very proud. They see the contribution to net zero by 2050 by their work, by their contribution in the power plant operation room, and the local operators in the field, even the construction team who did the projects. They're very, very proud. So if I can take this and give you what their family members think of them, what the nation think of those people, everybody is very proud of the contribution they are doing. And the pride goes because the UAE and the public here in the UAE are very aware of the benefit of nuclear. If you do a survey in the UAE, we've done the surveys over the last 10 years, and we've seen a constant acceptance level of nuclear industry. We rank the UAE public acceptance around 80+% of nuclear industry, which is, I think, maybe the highest in the world today. And that didn't come from of just like by a product. It came because we did a lot of investment in educating people about the technical aspects and the safety of the nuclear industry. In 2008 and 9, when we surveyed what's the public opinion of nuclear, came as a standard number of around 62 to 65% of public opinion. When you go and ask them, and I enjoy that question, I will ask them, do you know that we can make from nuclear, we can make power plants and make electricity? And I would say 90% people didn't know about it. So when you talk about that, no, it's for civilian purposes, and it will help the nation to grow and prosper and provide clean electricity. And these a lot of facts we got kind of pushed to the public. You mentioned the Fukushima. That was an opportunity for us. People were wanted to know what's happening, and they wanted to understand radiation between alpha, beta, gamma, and what are we in our homes and all that. And I don't know if you remember all the stories of non-scientific basis stories were going all over the world. And the UAE people were much more aware. They knew about radiation. They knew about the basic physics of it. So it gave a bigger boost of interest. Even in the Arabic media, we've worked with the IEA, and we've taken some of the Arabic content, translated some of the Arabic content, and pushed and we gave it for free in the social media. There's a lot of interest at that moment were paid dividends by educating people, and that's something. Sometimes when people talk about nuclear industry, that kind of I feel kind of not that easy, I would say, when people don't understand the physics and they talk about nuclear industry. when they don't understand the science behind, and also they come and they claim to understand it, and they give numbers and facts. And when you go and dig those numbers and analyze them, and they are not based on science, based on feelings, on fears, on speculations, and sometimes of the things go viral in social media, and people pick on it and become an expert in those fields. And that's something I think nuclear industry still suffers from that because of the lack of facts about the industry.
It's interesting. I always move back to this fact in terms of attitudes in France, which is a nation powered 75% by nuclear energy, and the young people there. Many of them believe that what comes out of the cooling towers is actually carbon or smoke, and it correlates the age cutoff at which that belief becomes predominant correlates with the September 11th attacks and the high schoolers no longer touring nuclear plants and no longer being educated in this way. In UAE, is there the opportunity for Emiratis to see the plant, to tour it? How do you kind of open up the technology and make it accessible to people? It sounds like that was a big part of the efforts right from the beginning of the process.
Yeah, Chris, that's actually a great point. Thank you for raising it. I would say, as you nuclear power plants, you cannot have tours in them because of security and also convenience. We don't want to bother the operators and the crew working the power plant. But what we do is we do virtual tours. We use the technology available. People can wear their goggles and walk in the power plant. We do take this to schools, by the way. We have over 50 to 60 events per year. We reach out to the teachers, reach out to the schools to educate them. We do public forums, very open public forums, and we talked very transparently about what's happening in the industry globally, what's happening in the power plant. We do share a lot of our data, and our regulator posts everything on their website. Because there is a lot of data that got given to the people. We are overdoing it, I would say, to encourage people to know about the industry. We're overdoing it to also get people to understand how this technology works. And there is great interest. And if I can go back, the pride of the young people and the pride of people of the nation on this advanced technology and making them interested also in STEM, it gives us dividends all over, many angles. One thing, by the way, also in the UAE, very people are we have a very nice problem, by the way. We have more women interested in STEM education than the men, almost 7 to 1, which is a nice problem to have. I have four daughters, so I'm very happy for them to enjoy STEM or join the STEM curriculum. And this nuclear industry provide those jobs for them. Nuclear power plants, when it comes to operation of nuclear power plants, as you know, these power plants are very clean and also very convenient to work on. Almost like you're walking in a as clean as hospital when it comes to
Yeah.
those power plants, and that also makes those jobs are convenient for men and women, and that's something also. We were the first industry to attract women to work in the nuclear power plants. We were also, by the way, we hosted the first women in nuclear conference in the Middle East ever, and was very proud to be hosting that. We had over 300 international guests came. We had a total of around 700 people came and learned from the women nuclear industry and the leaders of nuclear industry. That got also the young women we have here in the power plant to inspire to be CEOs and CNOs and plant managers, which is for me is a great opportunity to see, because it opens the doors for them to become leaders in this industry. And nuclear industry frankly needs more women on the senior posts and senior positions, because they always instill a kind of at leadership level standards of caring and a standard of development of the younger generation, the younger colleagues, which is I'm very proud to say, as I mentioned earlier, the second reactor went critical by one of the young Emiratis, women Emiratis, and the ratio we have today in women in nuclear industry, we have the highest ratio, by the way, plus 20% plus compared to the US and Canada and Europe and Asia. And we are very proud of that.
You're putting us to shame, my friend. You're putting us to shame. But that's very interesting. So, I mean, was this this decision the result of enlightened leadership? Is this a broader impulse within Emirati society? Is this something unique to nuclear? I don't. I mean, certainly there's lots of efforts you see, as you're mentioning, with women in nuclear throughout the world to increase the participation of women. But I'm curious where exactly that comes from in the Emirates that you've achieved such good results.
I think that all the points you mentioned, they are all of the above. I will start with leadership today in the nation here in the UAE. The leadership in empowering women in multiple. We have I think one of the highest ratios also of ministers, of women ministers. We have a minister of youth, and she is in her 20s, and she became the minister of the youth to encourage both boys and girls to become qualified and inspire to be leaders in their industries. And she visited Barakah, and she was also a role model for one of some of the young engineers, boys and girls we have. We have the leadership of the nation, very empowering of women, and also for me now having 4 girls, I'm also very interested to see them become successful in this industry. And we are taking these opportunities of developing the women and also men in the industry equally, so they can become successful and generate a huge interest and a huge buy-in for the younger generation for this great industry that will be there for the next 60 years.
So, beyond just making power, obviously there's a lot of companies, and you mentioned a lot of collaboration internationally. I know I've seen Canada's SNC Lavalin is involved in assisting with some of the engineering work. But I gather there's a number of Emirati enterprises that are coming into being to support the activities at the plant, and I heard even potentially to help supply maybe cabling or other supplies. These are just rumors I've heard to other builds in other places around the world. Is that something that's beginning to happen?
Yeah, that's true. We are supplying some other nations. And if I can take you back, Chris, when we did this tender in the market, we don't want we don't want the technologies here. We don't want to build reactors in the country. We want to use these technologies and find whatever we can develop within the UAE to help other nations to also benefit from. I have 2 examples. One of them you mentioned, a company called Barakah. We managed to qualify them and help them through the qualification process of the Q class, and they became successful and they supplied to Barakah. Now they're supplying also internationally. Another company called Emirates Steel, and that company also we invested. We put our staff, I think the staff I mentioned earlier that we developed early in the project. They were came in early in the job on the QS and quality and QA, and they developed our quality management system. I did second some of them to other vendors like Emirates Steel. They did spend their 6 months in their offices helping them to qualify their steel to become a Q class supplier. And they supplied Barakah with the steel. And today they pride themselves actually that they are qualified for nuclear power plants, means they are qualified for a very high grade steel. And that's something also gives them access to other markets globally and also regionally, because they have a very high quality steel. So the knock-on effect of this nuclear industry that got introduced in the UAE, it got the UAE from a legislation and kind of and introduce better legislations. It helped us also as a nation and our export control, because now you have material to account for and material to supervise, empower, establish a very strong regulator that also regulates nuclear, healthcare, and other sectors. And that's something which is now the country benefiting from, because you have a stronger regulator that qualifies people across industries and also regulate nuclear safety and export control. Even in our other ancillary industries, the kind of services for the Barakah plant, we are in the middle of outage right now for Unit 2. And that brings a lot of companies, local companies, to come and work on this power plant and service it. So it's upgrading the industries for the oil and gas, for other industries. And this is something you don't see the benefit immediately. You see the benefit over a decade, because it develops a highly skilled labor that they have a better quality control, quality surveillance, and they have a mindset of nuclear safety. When, if I could put my hat of one presidency, we always want to make nuclear industry kind of a unified and standardized way. And the excellence journey means every area of improvement you can develop, you invest on that. You never get satisfied with the status quo. You always constantly evolve and improve when it comes to quality standards for people, for process, for programs in a systematic way. And this is something I think the UAE is now benefiting from across sectors and across pollination for other sectors.
I want to pivot from speaking about this recent past into the near and far future. But before we do, you decided on four large nuclear reactors, the APR 1400s. I heard another rumor, I think it's been substantiated, but that the site has been prepared with, water intake and outtake to potentially allow for more units to be added. First off, why did you decide on the number of 4 units? And looking into the future, based on the success, are there plans to do more nuclear in the UAE, to add more units there, or to do another station?
That's another good question, Chris. And I like you. I like your podcast because you do your homework. So I'm glad you've studied that. So if I can take you back also in our planning here in the UAE, when we plan things, we plan it for long term. We don't plan short term. So we do mega planning, and I mentioned this earlier. We do a very thorough, very detailed planning. We do projects in a mega very well structured. You mentioned the airline, and we have also oil and gas. We have also renewable. All of it, we do it in a kind of a grandiose planning and a visionary, and that goes back to our leadership of the nation. They always push us to be number one in whatever we do, and that's why we've taken the approach in the nuclear industry. So when we did the Barakah planning, the site, we did design actually for 8 units of 1 gigawatt plus kind of a reactor. And what we did also, all the water intakes and also discharge channels for the water, for the cooling, was already been pre-installed at Barakah. And we did the math. If we install them at that time, it would cost us around 100 million, 120 million dollars. And if we do it once we finish commission unit 1, it's going to cost us $1 billion later. So I said, let's invest 100 million now and $1 billion later. And we knew that clean electricity will be in higher demand down the road, and that's why we invested on those in this mega project. Why 4, not 2? We did also a benchmark globally. If you build 4 units, if you build 2 units, the program becomes anemic, meaning that the industry becomes small, the cash flow is not enough to entice education and industry and get enough momentum for the nation to have a sustainable growth. 4 units were the kind of a threshold of a good program that will be successful and we will finance itself for a long time. And that's why we've gone with 4. And I'm seeing the dividends today of that benefit. We have enough cash flow for the industry to continue to grow in a sustainable manner. And if we're going to build more, and what I've seen today with the energy prices, with the demand also for clean electricity to help industries to grow and prosper, definitely some more units will be built in the near future. Even this morning, I was in a session doing a futuristic planning for the 2050 and how we achieve net zero in an accelerated way. And that also shows more clean electricity to be introduced in the sector. Or as we do in the UAE, we do multiple scenarios, and we always go with the scenarios that pay the highest dividends for us. And that's something we will continue to do. And if I can also cover another point, Chris, the benefit of building 4 units in a kind of a consecutive manner also paid a lot of dividends for us. I've seen the benefit when we did the first one. It was a challenging one. The second was easier, the third was easier, and the fourth was easier. If I can give you also a bulk number of the productivity of labor between the first 2 and the 1 and 2 or 3 and 4, the labor was almost 50% less. 50%. So it means that the 3 and 4 unit were dramatically cheaper to build, were easier to build, and was also done in a very sweet spot where you could easily roll over the manpower from unit 1 to 3 to 4. And there was a beautiful kind of a rolling wave, I would say, of this talent. The people who did the initial construction in unit 1, they finished, they go to unit 2, they finish, they go to unit 3, then you go to unit 4. Electrical work, they finish this, they go to this. And for them, it's becoming a replication of the same work they've been doing. So it reduces the rework and improves the quality of the work. Now, was part of the planning and the thinking we've done, that plan A worked in that scenario, because this talent, this institutional knowledge that you develop over years worked for us on those units. If they were two, I think we'll go to the tail end and we'll lose the benefit. But building four, it did uh, pay dividends in many aspects.
Right, right. No, what I'm struck by in this conversation is your emphasis on planning, and I'm hopeful that these lessons and that the models that are present in the UAE to do such systematic planning can be replicated around the world. Certainly, that's some of my fear. Looking around the West right now, sometimes societies where there's a lot of polarized politics and lots of changes happening every electoral cycle that don't allow this long term planning to take place. But it's interesting you referenced the book "How Big Things Get Done" by Professor Bent Fleabberg. We actually covered that book, and I interviewed one of the authors for the podcast. And it was a very interesting book, but it was quite bearish on nuclear. He sort of wrote off the entire technology, and I thought it was such a missed opportunity because nuclear presents this opportunity, yes, to have big fat tails and go way beyond budget and schedule, but also an opportunity to really study this phenomenon of something that can have troubles, but something that can be done so well. And I thought there was a missed opportunity there that ideally maybe there's another edition and they'll tell the story of the UAE and of Barakah and have a more sophisticated analysis towards nuclear. But just emphasizing this planning element some more. Do you have any other pearls? I know that there's things that will be relevant just to the UAE, maybe parts of that model that aren't exportable. But talking to brother nations like Poland, for instance, other newcomers to nuclear. If you had sort of top three bits of advice regarding planning, what would those be in speaking to those brother countries?
First of all, reading the book of how to get things done, big things done. That's a good reference point. And what I would advise is to do a proper planning when it comes to politics. Is difficult to plan for. I cannot go there, and I always enjoy my engineering background. I like to think of things black and white sometimes, but nuclear industry is also sometimes controversial. So having a clear policy, politically speaking here, that withstand and weathers the time and change of people and interest. So UAE had initially published a policy paper, and actually was published by His Highness Sheikh Abdullah, the Minister of Foreign Affairs at that time, and was publicly uh, published in a press conference in April 2008. I remember the date because was very clear and very important point that did explain the role and interest of the UAE. We are interested to use the civilian nuclear industry to power our nation and benefit from a clean, safe, reliable source of electricity. So that's a must for anybody want to develop the nuclear program to enjoy the clean and reliable electricity. Second comes the infrastructural planning, and you have to do a very thorough planning, looking at the level of maturity. And if I can go back also in the UAE, 2008, we didn't have a regulator. We didn't have a qualified person in the UAE to work in the nuclear industry. We didn't have even the legislations in the nation here to be able to bring the material here, to do the export control, to do this in a systematic and have the infrastructure to handle such facilities and support them to become successful. So we did a very thorough gap analysis. This is where we have, and this is the areas we need to grow, need to develop and educate and put the legislations. And we covered a very detailed work breakdown structure from legislation, law, regulation, human capital development, and across the whole spectrum. We call it level zero. Then we broke down that in details on what we should have. Then we rolled that in a schedule by 2017, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, how things should look like. Then we worked backward on how we should do it. So we developed a roadmap of 400 pages plus, and that roadmap has a couple of thousands of tasks, rolls over up to 100 and up to 2085. So with the detailed tasks of how we will even achieve decommissioning and restart and kind of retain the site as was when we took it over. So that detailed planning is very, very important. And also an overlook of what should we mitigate from a risks point of view. Nuclear projects, mega projects, run over a decade to construct, and you have to have those scenario planning done in a very detailed manner. And the last advice I would say, as the UAE, we are interested to go and help other nations to develop their programs. We are looking at Eastern Europe, we are looking at UK to go and also invest on those business opportunities. So we would love to touch base whomever interested to help them in the early days of the project, from siting of the nuclear site to the early construction work, to the construction license, all the way to construction, preparation for operation, testing, commissioning, all the way to operation. So we have this bouquet of services we can provide. We could share them pro bono, and we could also do them for business opportunities, because also we need to make some money and help others to become successful.
No, I think that's fascinating. And when you talked about making a decision on vendors, you went with a country and a program that's very credible. The Koreans, have been building those reactors quickly. They've really demonstrated the ability to build the exact type of reactor that they assisted you with in building in your country. And now it seems like you have the credibility as a new nuclear country to offer some of the experiences that you've gathered in this planning process. Which again, I don't think either of us can emphasize enough the importance of getting that planning right, of planning slow and building fast. Let's pivot now to talk about the near future, and I'm excited to be coming to your country. I believe end of November, early December for the COP28 climate conference, which the UAE will be hosting. Um, I think we missed each other by a few days in Egypt, unfortunately. It was interesting, touring all of the country pavilions in this, World Fair type environment. And to my great shame, at my country, there was no mention of nuclear, despite our beloved CANDU reactor and the amazing role that we've had with nuclear domestically and internationally. But there were some countries that showcased nuclear, and the UAE was one of them. Um, what are you anticipating for COP28? Is nuclear going to be a theme that you're going to be eager to talk about? This is, from my understanding, the largest clean energy project in the Middle East at Barakah. Tell me your thoughts about COP28.
So COP is a great opportunity to be able to engage and showcase the success story that we had here in the UAE. But what I'm seeing right now is a great interest in nuclear industry globally. I've attended the COP in Glasgow and also in Sharm el-Sheikh, and I've seen a very positive trend on the nuclear industry and a very positive welcoming of the nuclear industry to be part of the solution. And also, I'm seeing a realization that net zero by 2050 is impossible without nuclear being part of the mix. And that's something people are realizing it. Even the political, at political level, I've seen in Europe and other parts of the world, people want to have and engage in the nuclear industry in a very systematic, I would say, and a scientific manner, which is, I see it as an opportunity to showcase the success stories. UAE today, I would say humbly to say, it's been a great success story. If I can share a story, you mentioned the Korean kind of a success story. I remember in 2008, I've attended a workshop by the IEA. It's called the Milestone Document Workshop. And we were given the Korean experience. We were given other nations' experiences to learn from. And there's a 19 areas of infrastructure you need to qualify and benchmark against. And that was the foundation for our roadmap and our work breakdown structure that we took and we adopted in the UAE. And I was sitting in the back, one of the kind of in the back of the audience. And I was asking a lot of questions. And that's when, at that time, we were ranked number 40 in the world. We were now thinking about tendering. And I had some rudimentary questions about the nuclear industry. And up today to say I'm very proud. We have around 3,500 employees. And we get asked very often today by the IEA to come and present our case. So we are becoming their success story globally, and they want people to come and listen to our success story. I'm also very proud to say of our engineers, they go and showcase and share their experience, their lessons learned, how they overcome some of the challenges, how we were successful in many areas, from radioactive management, from radiation management, all the way to maintenance, all the way to safety, all the way to nuclear fuel design and fuel design reviews. So we managed to develop a lot of capabilities. Now we are sharing those capabilities to the IEA. Now when COP to to COP28, my vision is to see how we can bring nations to bring the facts and the science and the bankable projects to fruition. I think we have an opportunity to share the UAE success story. Canada is also embarking on the small reactors and small modular reactors. And also Canada has a great technologies. They can do reactors. There's a lot of appetite globally today. And COP28 here in the UAE, in Dubai, will be big. This morning I was in a workshop at the COP, and we are doing some preliminary activities there. We had a green summit discussion within the government, and that was done in the heart center of that where the COP will happen. And there's preparation work happening to kind of launch the pre-launch also some of the activities leading up to COP. And I do invite all countries, all nations to participate, and also encourage nations who have been benefiting from this technology, like Canada and others, to showcase their capabilities, to showcase their success stories, to also put the facts and the science out there for people to come and look at and understand the technologies. Can-do is a great technology. PWR is also great technology. BWR are great technologies. Also, some of the advanced reactors today, some of the new scale, X Energy, TerraPower, all of them also coming to showcase their capabilities. I'm also working with the IEA, WNA, and EI to see how we can collaborate and bring companies to come in the green zone and nations also in the blue zone so they can explain the success stories. I also here in the UAE will have a theme for young people and sustainability for the future. And also I'm sure there will be good dialogues and good discussion on the nuclear industry. This morning I was asked I would say tough questions about safety of nuclear power plant, waste management, and how nuclear power plants work and how they can prosper and how they can contribute to net zero. And I was very interested to listen to the young people. But when I gave them the facts and the numbers, I think some of them kind of had a reset button. I would say some, kind of a bulb just went on top of their heads. One individual was pushing, let's put rooftop panels on top of houses with solar panels, and we will be able to solve the energy crisis. And I was when I put the numbers to them, that when it comes to energy density, when it comes to how much you could produce from a panel on a roof of a house, and how much you could generate equivalent of from few grams of uranium in any reactor, and how much energy can produces. And they were very interested. So most of them are from the STEM background, so they were able to do algebra and do the calculation in their minds, and immediately kind of come up with the numbers. And I remember we were discussing with that young individual. He says, "Okay, that's like bring a small sledgehammer to kind of go and bring a mountain down." Yep, that's about it. That's the solar panel compared to nuclear power plant. So these analogies, I think, goes a long way with the young generation, and I think we have a golden opportunity today. To be very honest, I'm technology agnostic, so I like all technologies. It's good to look at the technical aspects, then you layer it with the commercial aspects, so you do the economics of it, and then you put whatever will work for each nation, because each country has its own unique pros and cons and benefits and limitations and all that. And what we did here in the UAE to make 4 units bankable and to be financed also by private banks, that's never been done anywhere. And that's something we can bring to the table. We can bring to the discussion. We can also help other nations to be able to replicate that. We have the legal infrastructure. We have the capabilities and know-how. And I would love to talk more to companies and countries to explain to them our success story at COP28. And I would share also, if I may, a short story. I was at the CERAWeek weeks ago, and I met with some of the banks and with some also a smaller group, new people are interested in the nuclear industry, the chemical industries and other industry. They want steam, hot steam. They want, some of them want to enable hydrogen and also process of chemicals. They need 600 degrees of Celsius of temperature. And I was explaining to them the success story we have in the UAE. And to my surprise, some of the countries of the big banks, they didn't know about what's happening in the UAE here. I said, you guys have nuclear power plants? And I said, yeah, 3 of them are operational, by the way. And that's, I feel we need to do more. And I see the COP as an opportunity for us to do more there and educate the public and the international community about what we've done in the UAE and the benefit we can bring to board to help other nations, but also put the solutions on the table for people to make their own choices of what will work for their countries to be able to meet the net zero by 2050. And the UAE today, we are an accelerator. If I can share with your audience the quick numbers, the 4 units that we will have operational soon, they will provide around 40 terawatts of electricity, terawatt hour of electricity annually. We will avoid over 22 million tons of CO2 emissions annually. And that's a huge. To put this to the listeners in perspective, that's equivalent to around 4.2 million cars by the codes of, I think, 2016 or so, the standards of car emissions. In the UAE, we have around 3 million cars, roughly 3.1 million cars in the UAE. And that will remove around 4.2 million cars. So that's a huge, even the transportation carbon emissions will be eliminated by those units. So, and another aspect also where we see the value of those units, it's enabling us also as a nation, as of today, because of the energy crisis in Europe, to be able to dispatch more gas to Europe, help them through this crisis. So we will not be able to do that without those 4 units being operational in the UAE. So they bring a lot of benefits in the UAE. And one other point we didn't talk about, Chris, which is we managed here in the UAE to generate green certificates through an independent government agency or accounting system to sell those green certificates. So the biggest companies in the country, our oil and gas company called ADNOC, came and bought majority of the electricity generated by those units, and they're paying a premium for this electricity they are consuming from the nuclear power plant. And this has enabled them to stamp their products being produced from a cleaner sources of electricity. Another company called Emirates Global Aluminum, it's called abbreviated as EGA. They are one of the key suppliers of aluminum, clean aluminum to BMW, and majority of the electric BMW now aluminum comes from here, from UAE, through a clean electricity. So these products and these opportunities won't be there if we didn't have this investment in nuclear power plant and also renewable. And we are very happy to see the dividends and enjoy the dividends of these investments. If I can take again back on the planning phase of 2008 and 2009, that was ink on paper. And for me, I was thinking about it, working very hard day and night to achieve this target and to achieve this goal. But today I'm sitting here in my seat, we're generating clean electricity, we are enjoying also the cash flow to the bank. It's counting as this counter much faster than when we have in our time counter here. So good revenues, and it's happening. It's real. It's bankable. It is saving the environment. We are providing a clean electricity for the nation. This light you see behind me here is now, as we speak right now, around 40% of it's powered by nuclear power plants from Barakah. A month ago, it was 80% because we have lower winter demand in winter because of lower AC demand, air conditioning demand. It was 80%. And for me, I'm very proud to be part of this journey and to be very proud of the young people we have, the 3,500 people we have at Barakah, strong people, very capable, very competent. And this is the beginning, only the beginning. Looking at the future, Chris, I do see our involvement in SMR. I do see our involvement in hydrogen production here in the UAE. I see the opportunity we can provide higher temperature steam to the chemical industry, to the other industries that are very interested to be using clean electricity. And also I see the future of us helping other nations, investing in other countries by our talent and helping other nations become successful in this journey of decarbonizing the energy sector through the atom.
I think that's a wonderful place to leave it, Mohammed. You must wake up sometimes and have to pinch yourself, just having walked through this process through a large part of your career. Again, from ink on paper to turning on the lights, and those lights being powered by these power plants that you've been so intrinsically involved in stewarding along into this world. So thank you for that. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. Again, there's been an enormous amount of interest in the UAE. I do hope to have the honor of meeting you at COP28, and hopefully getting to tour this plant at some point as well. So thank you for coming on again during Ramadan. Ramadan Kareem, my friend, and hopefully we will have you on again at some point in the future.
Thank you, Chris, and I really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to hosting you here in the UAE, and also to our listeners here in your podcast. I also invite you to come and COP28 here in the UAE. You'll enjoy it. It's a very welcoming nation. We love people to come and visit our nation, enjoy our culture, and enjoy the intellectual discussion that will be happening from now until COP28 and beyond COP28. And I hope, not hope, I'm confident that we will be able to meet the climate change challenge, and we will be able to accelerate our journey and our programs toward net zero by 2050. And the UAE is doing that in a very serious and a very ambitious manner.